The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you are sure to enjoy, and it's actually pretty topical given that Holy Week is about here. You want to check out PlayStation Portable. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/PSP. And PlayStation Portable is a prayer app, just so you know. It's got the Divine Office or Liturgy of the Hours every day, several different times a day, call to prayer. So it's a really great app, and I really encourage you to check it out. So I want to start today with a little bit of feedback from our episode last week that Jack and Thomas and I did on free and open source software. And the first one is just a recommendation. Obiki on YouTube suggested, on the subject of audio software, I want to add to the list Ardor Digital Audio Station. It says it's a very nice software and it's available on Windows and Linux. And I checked, it's also on Mac. So it's cross-platform and it's free. It's looks like a multi-track audio editor with takes the standard plugins that are out there available that most audio editors can use, and it looks pretty full featured. So it's free, so it's worth checking out. So Ardor Digital Audio Station. So very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Obiki. Then Rob Leonardi wrote in on Facebook. He had two questions. One, as always said on the podcast, with it being free, who exactly is making money? And two, with it being open source, how does one trust that what's being used doesn't have some sort of malware or virus that someone added? So I figure we'll discuss the first one. Mm-hmm. You know, someone's always making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not necessarily.
That's what I said. Like when we talk about, like, you know, somebody's always the product, something is always being sold. That's usually with regard to commercial software companies, corporations. Mm-hmm. Corporations have a duty to make money. They have a duty to their owners and shareholders to make money. That's what they exist to do. But a lot of open source and free software some of it is just enlightened altruism on the part of programmers or even small companies that, hey, we needed this tool to do this thing that we're doing, and we thought it would be useful to other people as well, so we made it available. We're not going to provide tech support or, don't expect, lots of extra help from us. But here it is. I mean, that happens all the time, and it has happened since the beginning of computing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And a lot of these open source projects, some of them are as simple as a one-man show where he's like, hey, I need to make this tool. Oh, yeah, I got this tool made. Now I can give it to other people and let them use it and continue to maintain it. I mean, that's how Linux started out, was literally one man, Linus Torvalds, sitting down saying, hey, I want to make this Unix kernel, this Unix-like kernel, and now it's used all over the world for many, many things. There are other projects where they are teams, and the teams are paid, and they're paid by companies like IBM and Microsoft and things like that. But they're nonprofits. They're nonprofit teams where, yes, the people are being paid, a living wage or whatever so that they can continue to work on the software. But it's not for profit,
right?
I mean, so the whole range.
SQPN is a nonprofit. We're not here to sell you anything. I mean, we do these podcasts for the benefit of, the gospel and for the benefit of people in general. So, that's the same sort of thing. Joanne?
And I think sometimes folks start off as free and open to see if there is a market out there, or people like us that like free. Because I do like free, but if it ever goes to monetary, depending on if it's useful to me, if it makes my life better or makes my work better, then I'll give them money because it's worth the time, and I know that they're going to follow through with support at that point.
Yeah, and in fact, I often, sometimes prefer paid software versus free software because with paid software, there's skin in the game, that they have an incentive to keep making it and updating it and making it better. I can't count how often I've had free software that even from big companies like Google that have gone away, Google Reader, and, and left you high and dry. Sometimes I want to go to some of these software makers like, hey, can I, these individual programmers, can I give you some money just to give you an incentive to keep making this? Because this has really become essential to me, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I do like the free, though, because it gives me a chance to look at it. But as my iPhone and iPads will attest, I have a lot of apps that I don't use. So free is always good instead of giving money and then going, this really rots. And yes, I share your pain on Google Hangouts. Just bye-bye.
Right.
Well, and the nice thing about open source, of course, there's a difference between free software and open source software. Not all free software is open source. Matter of fact, a significant portion of it is, but there's a lot of it too, where, like you mentioned, it's a company puts out a product to see what the interest is. They find there's an interest, so then they start charging for the second version. Open source, once it's open source, you can always take that code. If it's in a true open source license like the GPL or the MIT license, things like that, anybody can pick up that code and start working on it. And there have been projects where they died off. It just like it was the one man working on it, and he quit working on it, and someone else picked it up and it started development again.
Yep. That's actually a good opportunity to talk about his second question, is how do we trust that this open source software doesn't have malware or virus in it? And my response is that's precisely the promise of open source, because since the source code is open, anybody and everybody, mostly those who have understanding of how programming works, can look at it and say, hey, there is something in here that shouldn't be there. Now, it's not a guarantee. There have been problems where bad stuff have gotten into software projects, but that's also happened with commercial software, frankly. But in general, open source means anyone can look at it and say, yep, this software is free of this bad stuff. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, and depending on how big the project is, you've got a lot of eyes looking at it. And if you try to sneak something in, some of these, again, going back to the Linux kernel or the K desktop environment, which I use on Linux, and I contribute to, I give, $5 a month or something like that, $10 a month to, because I've used it since it came out in the late 90s. But there's a lot of people are looking at it, and they are very strict about who can contribute. You go to the GitHub or the sort, their version control software, and if you're not approved, it sits in limbo till somebody can look at it and say, okay, this is something we need to add. You can't just show up and throw things in there. And even those who have been doing the project for years, there's other people looking at their code. So there's actually a lot of firewalls against that. It has happened. There was a recent open source library that is very popular. It's used in many projects.
A lot of commercial software, yeah.
Free software, and the developer was getting upset because he wasn't getting any credit or money for it, and so he threw something that broke the library in, not maliciously, but it broke the software that people were trying to use that had this library that basically, if I remember right, it like popped something up saying, oh, by the way, this is using open source software and I'm the person who wrote it, type of deal.
Right.
And I look at open source software, say that 3 times fast, as an alternative to commercial stuff that I can't buy. That's too expensive, that I don't use all the time, such as OBS Studio. If that wasn't open source, I would not have a platform in which to make videos or stream or do any of that. So I appreciate the open source community a lot, even though I can't contribute, because believe me, some of it's way over my head.
Well, you have stuff like Audacity, which is a great,
there's another one.
Audio editors, not to the level of Adobe by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still a very, very good audio editor. So, yeah.
So I hope that answers your question, Rob, and anyone else who had the same questions. Then we would still love to get any further questions you might have on this topic of free and open source software. We do plan to come back to it in a regular segment on a future episode, but also we can address it in feedback as well. So let's move on to our main topic today. So April 1st is as we record, is on the way. And we all know that April 1st is a prime time for pranks. And who loves pranks better than tech geeks? I mean, geeks love pranks. I mean, that's I don't know, it's a DNA thing or whatever. But so I thought we could talk about two aspects of it. One, our favorite tech-related pranks that we could pull on other people, perhaps. And two, some of the best tech pranks that we've seen from big corporations on April Fool's Day. That's become a thing for companies to do that. And we can talk a little bit about whether they should be and whether it's gotten old or a little or that sort of thing as well. But I just thought we could, talk about this. But I want to disclaimer first. This should always be done in good humor with someone who won't mind too much if you do this, and don't leave them hanging. Pull them off the hook very quickly. Don't harm somebody. Don't harm their data. That sort of stuff. That's not prank. That's just malicious meanness, and don't do any of that.
But the problem is it's a Saturday this year.
Right.
So people in offices aren't going to get the chance to do this type of stuff unless you do it Friday, which would be the ultimate prank.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Pull your pranks. It just should be like any other holiday. If it falls on the weekend, move it to like the Monday or Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. The government celebration of April Fool's Day is Monday.
I thought that was April 15th.
I'm sorry. I cannot do anything to my secretaries on Holy Week. Just not going to work.
No. Or your priest. Yes. Or
correct. Or your liturgist. No.
There's an old joke that's maybe not in the best taste, but is resurrection was the best April Fool's joke ever, because it's like, I'm not dead, ha.
Yep.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's in bad taste or not, but
fooled you.
Yeah, all right, so let's get to the pranks, because I want to start with one that it sounds a lot of fun to me, which I saw someone talking about online, which if you have access to your victim's phone or their Mac, and this might also work on Windows, but I know this can work on iOS or Mac, is change the language that Siri responds in to not whatever is not your, like for me, or my wife would be my poor wife. She's going to get subjected to all this, to something not English, so that it responds to you in, say, Spanish or French or German or some other language, and they can freak them out. Like, what is going on? I mean, I don't know if you could do it like for Cortana on Windows or or whatever Google's voice is, but that is a nice small harmless one. So
I might try that on the HomePod for my husband. Change it to French, because he was brought up in a French household. So let's see if he notices the difference.
There you go.
Yeah, you could definitely do it in Google, and of course, there's always the old changing the display language as well.
That's right.
Oh.
Why do all my menus are in a different language, especially if it's a language with a different alphabet, like Russian Cyrillic or an Asian language? You get really mess with them.
Arabic or
That's right. So that's a good one. How about another one? Anybody have another one that you would?
Well, kind of along the lines of messing with displays. This is one that goes all the way back to Windows 95. I mean, this is one of the earliest ones. If you got someone who they always have to have their icons, and they're always using their icons, take a screenshot of the blank desktop, move all their icons into a folder somewhere on the desktop, and then change their wallpaper to the screenshot.
So they would trying to click on the icons of their apps or documents.
Yep.
And it's not doing anything.
Or another option of that is like you open up a Word file or something like that, and if it's somebody whose grammar drives them nuts, bad grammar drives them nuts, or bad misspelling drives them nuts, purposely type something on it so that it's misspelled or it's grammatically wrong, and watch them try to correct it. Same kind of idea
with the screenshot. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a good one.
I went the other way with the screenshot. And if people are not familiar or don't use Stage Manager in Mac, just turn Stage Manager on and they can't find anything.
That's right.
Because everything has disappeared.
Where did it all go? I don't understand.
I could hear my husband, what's wrong with this computer now?
I don't know, for my wife, maybe I should just close all of her tabs in her browser. That would be one that would drive her crazy.
Oh no, that's getting too malicious.
No. So set up a tab group, right? And then, then switch out of the tab group.
Okay. All right. Maybe.
That's a Safari feature where you all the open tabs, puts it in a group, and then you can switch out of it, and all that goes away, and you just have a blank tab. Where's my tabs?
Yeah. Because that might be the end of your marriage.
Yeah, tread very carefully on that one.
Or at least finding out how comfortable the futon is these days. So
True.
Another one would be to set a sleep schedule on your victim's computer to go to sleep in the middle of the workday. So you can, with a lot of computers like Macs and Windows, you can set a sleep schedule. And sometimes people do that, like it wakes up at 8:55 a.m. and goes to sleep at 5:30 or whatever at the end of the day. Well, this way you can actually go to sleep in the middle of they're typing along, working, and all of a sudden, voom, it goes away. It goes to sleep. That is a nice one, because as soon as they hit another key, it will come back up again. But there will be that just brief moment of what happened to my computer, and that's a nice fun one.
See, I can't do any of this at home because it's tax season.
I know.
And
your husband is a accountant.
Is a tax preparer, so I just can't play with the. I can play with the iPad, but that's stretching it.
Yeah.
So,
or the other tech, like the HomePods, like you mentioned, that would be good too.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep. So one that I like is to get your victim's phone, if you get it again, and program into the autocorrect. There's an autocorrect place on Android and iOS where if you can type in common misspellings, right, or common expansions, like if you type a certain phrase all the time, you can type an abbreviation, and then whenever you type the abbreviation, it'll expand it. So what if you took any common word that phrase that your victim uses and replace it with something long and slightly embarrassing, like replacing "I'm sorry" with or "okay" to be a long nerdy movie quote, and then and then in a group text, you send them a message which elicits that response, like "okay," and then instead of "okay," it's just something long and embarrassing, weird.
Nah. Houston, we have a problem. There you go.
Yes.
Well, I was saying, no more rhymes. I mean it. Would you like a peanut?
Oh, or I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, you can come up with all kinds of ones, especially ones appropriate to that particular person. I've seen one about flipping the display so that, it's similar to the whole changing the desktop into a background. You can, if you have an external display, so this won't work on a laptop, but you can flip it upside down. Like you can rotate the image on the screen so that it's upside down, or sideways. So that would be a fun one. On a Mac, it would be in System Settings, Display, and there should be a button called Rotation for external displays. On Windows, I guess Control Alt down arrow will flip it. Control Alt up arrow will restore it. And remember, don't do pranks unless you know how to restore from it. Don't do any one-ended pranks.
Or if you're gonna go out, don't let that happen while you're out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. This one is a good one. My brother-in-law came up with this one, which is you set up a Google Voice number, like a new Google Voice number or something like that, and then text your victim, "Welcome to Snail Facts," or something similar. You've been subscribed to Snail Facts, and you'll receive an hourly Snail Fact or whenever you respond. And since it's a new number, they won't know who this is. And so they will respond, and you say, type stop to end Snail Facts. They'll type stop and like, "Thank you for continuing with Snail Facts. Here's your next," and like, just go to Wikipedia and pull up random facts.
Oh my.
He did Snail Facts. You could do cat facts or any like weird thing, but just torture them for an hour or so, and then let them off the hook eventually.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, in some of those, I know like the messaging agent on Android will let you time messages where you can delay when they get sent, and so you could really be cruel and like put like 3 or 4 of them. So every 5 minutes, another one comes up, or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean that's just. I've actually started doing that to text spammers, because I don't know if you guys are getting this, but I'm started getting these texts from like, hey Anna, I mentioned this before on the podcast. Yes. Hey Anna, we're going, it's a wrong message, but can we be friends? And I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You're some dude in some sweaty dude in a sweat room somewhere trying to get me to give my bank account information. So I now started responding with snail facts. Thank you for subscribing to snail facts.
That's really good. I'm going to use that.
And you just pull up the Wikipedia page and just like grab things at random and you drive them crazy. And then eventually
that would be good.
Then eventually you block them.
I would block him right after I sent the first message.
Right. I think the only thing I'm going to be able to do is tape the bottom of the mouse.
Yes, that's a good one.
It's an old trick and it's something quick and he'll scream for 5 minutes and then I'll let him off the hook.
Yes. Yeah, put a little tape over the bottom of those. That works on optical mice. It goes all the way back to the ball mouse. That would work with it too.
Mm.
Father Cory, you had one that goes way back to the original optical mice.
So when optical mice first came out, they weren't like the current ones that can work on any surface or any non-shiny surface.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you have a shiny desktop or a glass desktop, optical mice don't like that, but a regular desktop will work. Well, when they first came out, they actually needed like a special gridded mouse pad. It was like a metal reflective mouse pad. And the company that I saw use them was Sun Microsystems, Sun, which created Java and later is now part of Oracle. But they were gridded in such a way that it read the grid to know whether it was going up and down, left or right, because the lines were different. So if you turned it 90 degrees, you would slide to the left and it would move up.
Yep.
And right would go down and and it was just a very simple thing. And of course it was a rectangular mouse pad. It's the same size of my mouse pads you see today still, but
yeah.
That was just kind of a cruel little one if the person didn't realize.
Oh.
Yeah. So those are some ideas for some fun, harmless April Fool's Day pranks related to tech. If you've got a fun one or that you try, or if you do one of these and you get a little video of the person, be sure to send them in. You could send us your ideas to technology@sqpn.com. We'd love to hear them. But the other thing that April Fool's Day is famous for these days is tech companies mainly, but lots of big companies online having April Fool's jokes. And so I thought we could talk about some of the ones we like, some of the ones that are more famous. One of you picked the one from Google. Google does one every year, but Father Cory, I wonder if this is yours.
This is an old one. This goes back to 2007. This was one of their first ones, and this is probably, in my opinion, probably one of their more famous ones. It was Google TISP, TISP, the Toilet Internet Service Provider. And it's, of course, Google's known for Google Fiber. Well, this was their first attempt, quote unquote, at fiber to the home. And you got this kit that included a reel of fiber optic cable with a waterproof connector on the end and a sinker. And you would take it and you would flush the cable through the sinker, and it would go through the toilet to their central hub where they would then plug it in. And then you had your router sitting on the top of the toilet tank.
With a wire going in, like, under you
into the toilet
as you're sitting there. I mean, obviously a joke, but they had pictures, they had a whole kit. Yeah, I mean,
and you go to frequently asked questions, they show you the different levels. You got trickle level, the number 2, and the royal flush.
Oh my.
And by the way, to show the time, the trickle was 8 megabits down. The number 2 was 16 megabits down, and the royal flush was 32 megabits down.
Wow,
that was considered dramatic speeds then.
Dramatically high.
Now we're like, this is slow, but
this was 2011. It looks like it was when they did this one. So yeah.
Well, 2007 is I thought what I saw, but you might be right.
Well, the bottom of the page says copyright 2011, so that might be when they
copied it, because
right, yeah.
It makes me think that some poor person was trying this thing at home to get Google Fiber, really.
Don't flush your fiber.
And by the way, if you follow links, there'll be links where it will be not found, and it makes it clear that they did or it says, there are so many reasons why this was not found, or less plausible yet theoretically possible, depending on which ill-defined grand unifying theory of physics one subscribed to. Some random fluctuation in space-time continuum da 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 da. Or of course, the most likely scenario is an April Fool's joke that we hacked together at the last minute.
At the last minute, this sounds like people have way too much time on their hands.
Yeah, this wasn't done at the last minute. They'd spent some time on this.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And the last question, why is TISP in beta? When things go wrong with TISP, they go very, very wrong. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh, I can imagine. So there was another one too. This was an old one. This one goes back, 80 years. What's this one, Father Cory?
Okay, so yeah, this goes back before internet.
Yep. The
Turbo Encapulator. And this was sort of an April Fool's joke. It actually showed up in Time magazine back in the 1940s, mid to late 40s. And this is really the first sense of technobabble. Star Trek is known for its technobabble. Well, this is the start of the technobabble. You can go and watch videos where people have done this. Matter of fact, I've given a link to Dom that he'll put in the show notes for when Chrysler did it, when a commentator or a guy at Chrysler did it as part of their little tech videos they do.
Yep.
Based on here's what a GE tech page says. Based on the principle of power generation by the modal interaction of magnoreluctance and capacitive directance, the turbo encapulator negates the relative motion of conventional conductive motion of conventional conductors and fluxes. It consists of a base plate of prefabricated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, and goes on and on and on.
And none of that means anything.
None of it means anything.
Jeez.
And you'll see these videos like the one I linked to, where it's a guy doing like a tech video, because if you remember those, like those old tech videos where they talk about their product and how to service it and everything.
Yeah.
And he's doing it totally deadpan, totally serious, just like you would have done any other tech product. But he's just rattling through all this technobabble.
Right. I've actually seen a different version of the guy reading this thing where he's walking in front of like random blinky panel, like blinky light panel,
Honeywell had one.
Yeah.
Chrysler had one. GMC had one.
It's sort of become like a rite of passage in the industry to have this particular turbo encapulator,
and then there have been others. There's a hyper encapulator. There's
it's really good.
But this is where technobabble comes from, was from this.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is technobabble. It really is. So sometimes these go a bit wrong. And I think this next one was an example of it, because wasn't this Volkswagen prank it was just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
People got upset about it. What was this one?
Oh yeah. They decided, because they were going into electric cars now, that they would change their name to Volkswagen
instead of Volks. Yeah.
And it looked real. And I remember the hubbub of everybody, including my husband, who at the time had a Passat. So it's like, what are we calling these cars now? This is really stupid. And it really worked, because people believed it. I guess it came out a few days beforehand.
Yeah.
So it made it look really plausible. And then they turned around and said, "Now we think we're just going to keep it the way it is. The people have spoken, and April Fools."
Yeah.
So
that was, I remember that was just a couple years ago. And I remember people kind of being a little angry about the trick, and it kind of blowing up in their face a little bit. Yeah.
Well, they were having other problems at the time, so they probably thought this was a great way to deflect.
Oh, that's right.
No, not so much.
Nope, too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what do you think? I mean, there was let me talk about my one for this section, and then, because ThinkGeek.com they're known for having toys for geeks. They have all kinds of fun, cool, geeky, nerdy things, but they've been known for their April Fool's products, products that they pretend that they sell. And they had one. It was the Tauntaun sleeping bag. In Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, there was a scene in which Luke Skywalker, spoilers for a 40-year-old movie, 35-year-old movie, Luke Skywalker is in the cold, and he's riding this creature called a Tauntaun, sort of like a camel for freezing weather. And the Tauntaun dies. Han Solo has to save him, cuts open the Tauntaun and shoves him inside the viscera, where it's nice and warm, to keep him from freezing to death. And that's why the old joke is what's the internal temperature for Tauntaun? Lukewarm.
Oh.
So they made a Tauntaun sleeping bag which people loved. They thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, because nerds, we love the joke. And this thing, so it looked like a tauntaun, a sleeping bag, and the interior fabric looked like viscera, intestines of the creature. And people loved it. This was 2009. People loved it so much they actually made it a real product for a while. You can't get them anymore. They don't sell them anymore. But so it's the unusual one of the April Fool's joke that actually became a real thing eventually.
ThinkGeek was well known for that, and sadly, I don't think ThinkGeek even exists anymore. I think it got bought out, or
yeah, probably. It's because
I tried to click a link on one of the products, and it took me to GameStop's website. Which, speaking of products that aren't going to exist much longer, GameStop. But no, they were well known for coming up with these just off the wall things, and everybody's like, "We want this." Oh, you actually want this? Okay, we'll make it then. We were just kidding, I
remember the other one that I remembered was the canned unicorn meat. So it looked like a Spam can, but it said unicorn meat inside.
Oh no!
Get that for some little girl in your life.
Great. Sparkles not included.
So some people think that that the April Fool's Day jokes by big companies has run its course. We shouldn't do this anymore. We should be more serious. What do you think? I can see the case, because in the day of fake news and disinformation, maybe this sort of thing, we need to be more careful about spreading this sort of stuff. What do you think?
I always enjoy these. I always enjoyed them. I always was there were so many good ones, but it's kind of gotten to the point now where it's just like, I'm going to stay off the internet on April 1st.
Right.
They just, because some of them, first of all, there's really no thought put behind them. I mean, they're just dumb.
Yeah.
But there's some of them where it's just like,
I feel like
it's almost ridiculous. It's just, it's run its course, but not because I think companies need to be serious. I think it's because if they're going to do it, they need to do it well, and they need to do it right. And they really aren't. They're just doing it because that's what you do now.
Yeah. Too many feel like they were dreamed up in a marketing office, because on the editorial calendar for marketing, it says we have to come up with an April Fool's campaign. And so let's all sit around a table in a conference room and come up with something that will be approved by some humorless vice president somewhere.
And the classic ones were oftentimes like the Google ones, where a lot of them were a crew in Google came up with an idea and they put the page together, like that TISP one, and it got posted.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's lost. It's not as grassroots as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel that, first thing is, I don't believe any celebrity dies on April 1st.
Right.
Even the ones who actually do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest one to go to. And I'm on the fence, there are so many of them. You don't know what's real, what isn't on April 1st. But on the other hand, we need to lighten up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We've gotten to the point where we're pretty jaded about everything. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to get a good one, and you can lighten up and say, okay, that was funny. Somebody actually thought a good one up. But then again, there's those vice presidents who have no humor and they think it's funny, and the rest of us go, lame.
By the way, another corollary to this is no company will announce any new product on April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is correct.
So just, if you see a new product announced on April 1st, just trust it is not a new product. So, all right, so that's our April Fool's ideas, our walk down memory lane, and if you pull off any April Fool's pranks, we'd love to hear about them from you, and let us know at technology@sqpn.com. So before we move on to our headlines, I want to talk about I want to thank our patrons. That's what I want to talk about, is take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Aga O, Sean M, Brian S, Sean M, and Ruben L. Sorry, I got confused there. Their generous tax-deductible donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So let's get to some headlines. So here's one, a tech headline, a Catholic tech headline. Just this past week, this viral image of the Pope Francis, wearing a Balenciaga, which I presume is a very expensive fashion choice, puffer coat, out in the public. It went viral. And part of it is Pope Francis's famous appeal to poverty and getting rid of ostentatiousness, and this idea that Pope Francis would be wearing this very expensive puffer coat in public shocked people. Well, it turns out that this is an AI image. It's a viral image that this one guy came up with using the Midjourney AI art generator, and it caused some controversy. And he said he never thought it would go viral. He just kind of did it to be funny. He was trying to cheer himself up after his brother died, which is, it's as sad as it is. And but he didn't want it. He never intended to cast aspersions on Pope Francis. What do you think? I mean, is it in poor taste, or do people overreact? What do you think?
Yeah, that's my reaction. Although in this article from BuzzFeed, I do think that Anne Hathaway does wear it a little bit better. But no, I think when we start to get into stuff like that with famous people, and I know that's what they want to do, we start treading lines a little bit. We start crossing lines, and it's not that. You see, if it were Pope John Paul II, I'd believe it more, because he was a skier. He did wear puffer jackets, not quite as elaborate as that one. But, the thing that's suspect for me is wearing the cross on the outside, the pectoral cross. That just doesn't happen. Right.
That would be on the inside.
That's like immediately says to me, that's a fake picture.
Although I got to say, the Midjourney version 5, which is the current version, is so much more realistic. The images that it creates.
Yeah. For me, it's not so much was it controversial that was the Pope in this, elaborate jacket. Who cares? It's more the fact that it was that believable.
Yes.
That the AI made it that believable that, we talk about deepfakes. That's what this is. This is showing the potential for deepfakes. I mean, I saw a video recently, and might even talked about it here on the podcast about what they can do with AI, both for the voice, producing the content, and producing the video.
Yeah. Our next headline will be about a voice AI thing. But one thing I would point out is, you mentioned the pectoral cross. There's a second image of the Pope in an orange jacket. And if you look closely, you can see that the chains of the pectoral cross merge into the strings for the hoodie of the hood. I mean, there's a clue there that, and that's the thing is there's still, even as good as some of these are, there's still clues of, that these aren't the actual thing, but that's just going to get better, so.
And that's going to scare me, because then what do we believe anymore when we see things? And two, as a genealogist, is this going to get trickled down to our, descendants as real when it's not?
Right. Well, I mean, this has been a problem for a while already with Photoshop and all of that photo manipulation.
Yeah, but not this good. Not this good.
Well, I mean, even Photoshop, like a lot of these magazine covers, that's not how that actress really looks in real life or model. I mean, I saw, what was that, the Top Gun Maverick poster art, and I'm like, Tom Cruise that's not Tom Cruise. That is an illustration that, that's been either heavily airbrushed or whatever. So we've got these, issues with this for a while, but yes, it is getting even more crazy, but it just emphasizes, don't just believe anything you see or hear. Take everything with a grain of salt, research or look into it. The outrage generation machine, you need to get out of that cycle and take everything with a grain of salt.
I do get a kick out of the guy who created this was on hallucinogens at the time that he did this.
Yes.
So that had to make it even more trippy for him.
The poor guy. In fact, someone sent me a link to a Facebook group where people have AI art, and there was more images of Pope Francis. This time he was at a club breakdancing. So Like, hey, if Pope Francis could get down and break dance like that power to him. I'm not sure his hips would take it these days, but
I was gonna say, he would break something, all right.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the dancing either.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I mentioned that there was another story about AI voice encryption, or not encryption, but voice deepfake. That's what I want to say. This headline, how I broke into a bank account with an AI generated voice. Now, you have to understand that there are certain systems out there, some banks, that allow you to, do your banking over the phone. And in order to verify it's you, rather than type in a password, they've taken a voice print of you at some point in the past when you're setting this up, and then you verify your voice with the voice print. And so what this guy did was just created a AI generated version of his voice using this 11 Labs, which is really significantly really good. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, for someone like me who's you get hundreds and hundreds of hours of podcasts out there, it's kind of scary that someone could use that to make a version of my voice. Well, anyway, he used this to log into his bank account, check his balance, and do other things using sound clips of his voice as opposed to himself. And all he needed was his date of birth and this voice authentication. And this now. The article makes this out to be a very bad thing, a big deal. Is this, should we be concerned by this, or what do you think? Is this something people need to be worried about?
I do think it is something that banks and other, secure organizations like that need to be concerned about, need to be watching closely. I don't think we're there yet. Because like it said, it had to know his date of birth. And yes, I know that's publicly available information. That's if you're, if they want to find out information about us, you can go online and pay $10 and do a search, and you'll get that information. I think it would be a concern for somebody like us, who we have easily available recordings of our voices online. Somebody could download our podcasts and make our fake voices, but most of the time, I don't know of I don't have any banks that work this way yet. You still have to punch things in. You still have to know last four of Social Security or something like that, So but it is something that I think, as banks are trying to make their resources more easily available online and more convenient for people to use, they do need to be watching for stuff like this, I do think.
Yeah. I don't think I would ever use a voice authentication. I just, even before this, I think voice is an insecure password in general. I just don't think the systems are that good. So I wouldn't have used this in the even before. So it's not a huge concern. Frankly, I feel like banks are often, their security is actually pretty bad. Their two-factor authentication is a text message often. The text is a terrible.
That's advanced two-factor authentication.
Please
it's not
stop
what was your
sending
high school mascot? Right. What was your high school mascot, Scott? What street did you grow up on? I hate those questions.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and as one who studied voice and had to alter my voice, and it's known that your voice goes from a high to a low as you age. It is not like your fingerprint, unless you're going to shave those off. But still, your voice changes, and you can manipulate it. It's not like a fingerprint. So what if Rich Little was still alive? He could probably break into Johnny Carson's account without a problem.
Right.
Okay, and what would it register as Johnny Carson? Would it register as Rich Little? If you're saying that your voice is just like you, it's no, I don't. It is not.
Yeah, I agree. While this article I think is worthwhile, I think it's a little bit hype-ish, and I don't think it's not world ending. Yes, we need to be concerned about this AI voice synthesizer, partly just so when it's used to deceive us about public figures and that sort of thing. Again, take everything you hear and see with a grain of salt. So,
admittedly, though, you said it was kind of hyped up. Well, it is Vice, where Vice isn't exactly known for not being hyped up.
Yeah,
constantly.
Exactly. So, hey, let's go from bad uses of AI to some good uses of AI. This article from The Guardian on how almost 40% of domestic tasks could be done by robots within a decade, which I have to admit that I feel like they've been promising within a decade for decades.
For the last 2 decades.
Ever since the Jetsons. So
Rosie the robot.
Yes. So they say things like shopping for groceries was likely to have the most automation, while caring for the young or old was the least likely to be affected by AI, which seems self-evident to me. But greater automation could result in as quote wholesale onslaught on privacy. So what do you think of this? Is this hype, or is this, and are you genuinely looking forward to automation helping you with more domestic tasks?
As I get older, yes, please, and thank you. Only because, and then that's what I'm kind of starting getting into with home automation, to get used, my husband and I used to that as we get older, so that there are some things that we can relegate. But I have yet to see some of the products that they've been promising actually work well.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
please let it happen.
Yeah.
There definitely needs to be some improvements on current technology. I've got a Roomba that I don't even use because I have to spend as much time getting the floor ready for the stupid robot so it doesn't catch on cords and corners and vents. And if I'm going to do all that, I'm just going to pull out the stupid vacuum cleaner and do it myself.
I have a dog.
Yeah.
I have a dog. Enough said.
I have 5 kids with Legos, and plus, my kids are my Roomba. Hey, go vacuum over there.
Yeah. So, I think there's going to be a lot of devices that are going to help make things easier. I mean, you could, if you want to take a real loose definition of a robot, an Instapot is a robot. A device that you just throw everything in it, you set it and you forget it until it's done.
Yep.
Yeah. I would love to get more automation in my shop, like food shopping. That would be great. Throw it next week's menu and it figures out, knows what we have. This was a promise. I remember when I was a kid reading, future things. The robot knows what's in the pantry and the fridge and the freezer, and you tell it what you want to make next week, and it keeps your regular stuff stocked and knows what ingredients has to get, and then has it delivered. I would love that. Preparing for and shopping for, it takes a huge chunk of I do the food shopping in my house, and that's a huge chunk of my time. I don't want to have to do that. I would love for automation to take that over.
I'll tell you, during the pandemic, having the apps to be able to, like Dom and I live in a region where we use Stop and Shop, and having that app, having me able to pick things and then go pick it up rather than shop the store was a huge boon. When I'm sick now, I do use that again as well, because why should I go in the store if I'm not feeling well, but I need these things? So have the kid bring it out. But for meat, still, I'm one of those people that likes to see the meat.
Well, I'm the same way with vegetables and fruits.
Same thing.
Whenever you let the kid pick the vegetables and fruit, he always gets the worst stuff.
Now, they do have fridges now that have cameras inside the fridge and can show you what's in there. So it's really not that far off when you could have the camera. It sees, oh, you're down to your last, little bit of ketchup. Put ketchup on the menu or on the list, whatever. Oh, you just pulled out the last apple. So we're going to put apples on the shopping list, stuff like that.
Do you know how much they cost?
Oh, I know.
Well, that's the promise, is as these things get more ubiquitous, the price comes down and that sort of thing. And that's what the hope is, that some of this AI in the home becomes more practical, becomes more common and, useful. That's the thing, is a lot of it is still kind of concept. We have nothing, they've tried to come up with laundry folding machines. It's just not, it's just too hard right now because it's too many different kinds of clothes.
Try folding a fitted sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When they can make a machine that folds a fitted sheet, then I will believe the future is here. Yeah. So I would love to see that, up to 40%. I'd like to see what 40%, I didn't dig into the report itself, what 40% they thought in particular, but hey, we went with washing machines and dishwashers. We got rid of a lot of the domestic tasks that freed us up to go to work and for women to work inside the home and then do even more stuff. But it would be nice. I'm afraid that we would just fill up that extra time with more busy, stressful things. So maybe not so good. Our last headline, Nokia has announced that it's launching a DIY repairable budget Android phone. They're working with a company or a website company called iFixit, who I love. They
great site.
They provide repair tools and great repair guides for all kinds of technology, including stuff from Apple, where it does not make it easy to repair the stuff. So this is a response to the modern trend among all the big phone makers, for example, that their phones are not repairable. I mean, this has it is built to be repairable, so you can replace the battery, the camera, the port, the charging port, the screen, all with iFixit guides and tools and they have price lists for the products. So the Nokia G22 will cost starting at £150. This is from the British paper The Guardian. So £150. Replacement parts, £19 for a charging port, £23 for a battery, £45 for a screen. So up front what the the replacement costs are. So what do you think? I mean, is this something that you would want? What do you think?
More please. More please. Apple, Google, Samsung.
Yeah.
Are you watching? Are
Yeah.
you listening? You can make good-looking phones that are small but still repairable. This is a doable thing. I'm all for the right to repair. I am very much for right to repair, to be able to replace your battery. You talk about iFixit. I replaced the battery on my old MacBook Pro from them, and stuff like that. But I still remember when you actually could pull the back off a phone, and that's all you had to do to replace a battery. It wasn't that long ago, and I think this is something we need to see more manufacturers doing, because some of these parts aren't that expensive, like a charge port. I had a tablet where the charge port went out. Guess what? I was out of luck. The thing was a paperweight at that point. So, yeah, more manufacturers need to do this, and they need to start doing this now.
I'm in your camp as well now. That thank you for the Christmas suggestion of the iFixit kit, which I did get.
Oh, good.
And I have used not just on my technology, but in other places in the house that has very interesting screws and whatnot. Yeah, I'm not wedded to a phone that has a glass back. So what the heck? I wouldn't mind putting in a new battery or fixing something if it gets damaged. Sure, I'd go for it.
I mean, Apple has made some gestures in this direction with its like the sending out the repair tool kits that you can get for very short money. It's not perfect yet. I mean, some of it is these huge bulky tools, and you have a limited amount of time to use it and that sort of thing. But it's a gesture in the direction, which is nice. But yeah, I agree. This phone, it does not look bulky and awful like you would expect a modular phone to look. This actually looks like a regular Android phone. I don't know how it performs. That's a whole nother question. That's
well, and it is a low end device, so it's not going to be like my Pixel 7, which is top of the line. It is going to be slow, but at $150 or £150, which is about $250, that's still not too bad. I mean, it's an entry level phone.
I would give it to a teenager, because they're going to break them anyway. So you may as well.
Mm-hmm. Or a husband who just uses the phone as a phone.
Right.
People do that? Oh.
Yes, he does.
Just kidding.
So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept. I'm like, yes, like as you said, more please, more of this. We want to see more of that. All right, those are our headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. Father Cory, you're up first. What's your pick this week?
So I've picked lots of games, and of course, when you're playing games, you need a good controller. And one of the most compatible controllers for desktops, laptops, whether Mac, Windows, Linux, is the Sony DualShock 4, which comes with the PlayStation 4. It just works over Bluetooth. And if you're having issues because your Bluetooth isn't receiving, you can just plug it into USB. And it works with almost every Steam game. Steam comes natively with it. So, and it's kind of funny too, on the front end of it, of course you can't see it because we don't do video for this, but it's got a little touchpad on the front where you can use it to move your mouse and click on it.
Oh.
because that's part of, for the Sony, but then it's got the analog controllers and the D-pad and the buttons and the triggers and everything. So any games that you play, it does just great with it, and it's a well-known, easy to get controller. It works well. Of course, it's designed for console gaming, so it's gonna be rugged,
right?
Because they test these things to the end of their life, So yeah, it's about $60, $50-$60 depending on which model you get, but it's just a good, easy, relatively available controller for gaming.
Yep. I have a future pick of the week. I'm planning that for Max gaming, where something like this would be very useful to add. So yeah, good pick. Joanne, how about you? What's your pick this week?
Well, this is an app that I have used constantly when I was doing my own podcasts and when I was doing a lot of formation with families. It's kind of fallen by the wayside, but I'm thinking again of doing a podcast. So I pulled it out. It's called the Soundbite Cart Machine app. Since we were also talking about April Fools, there's some unlimited uses that this could take on. Yep. But what it is, it's an old sound cart that radio people used to have. And you can put up to 5 rows of 15 sounds or anything else, either sound clips, complete songs, interviews, anything you got. You could put a whole podcast on this thing. It does live natively to the device you're on. So it's either on iPhone or iPad. So that's one of the reasons why I have to move it from my smaller one to my bigger one. But I'll tell you, this thing is a riot and a half. And if you've got the occasion to kind of beef up anything, like when I was doing formation, I would use it when they were doing an icebreaker or when we were going to take a break and answer questions. The think theme from Jeopardy would come on, and I was able to control it with anyone, either the iPhone or the iPad. It's $4.99. You can't go wrong. And this thing has been around. It's by Black Cat Systems, and it's been around for years. I swear by this thing. And there were also 20 different racks. So you've got 20 racks of 5 by 15 if you want. But they go down as many as 3 by 6 if you can't see like I can't now anymore. Then you need the bigger buttons. But you can fade, you can roll them in, you can program them to come on at a certain time. It's better than having a machine that's separate, because now you've got your iPad. And I'll tell you, it's got so much of my old stuff. Yep, it's got all my old stuff on this. Everything is on here but the kitchen sink. So if you're looking for that kind of an app, there you go.
Looks like it's been around since 2010, so it's a long-lived. I remember this from way back in the day. It's awesome.
Yeah, back when everybody was doing all their podcasts, one take, and they'd have the little soundboard.
Yep.
I'll tell you, and it's better when you're doing it one take than putting it in later, because the missteps are great.
Well, yeah, I mean, my Rodecaster has, it's got that sound card built in. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I can hit it again to turn it off, but. Yeah.
And then you start playing with it, and it's fun, but it is all native. It doesn't go in It does not go in iCloud. You have to have it on the devices.
It predates iCloud, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does.
Yep. Good pick. So my pick this week is a new feature of Google Photos on iOS, and this has also been available on Android. And if you have a Pixel phone, you've known about this. The caveat is that you have to be a Google One member. It's like you have to have the paid Google One service in order to use it.
Right. If you're not using a Pixel phone, Pixel phones get it for free. But you're right. Anything else, an Android or iOS, you need to pay to Google.
Right. And so the feature is. Among other things, Magic Eraser. And what Magic Eraser is you pull up a photo, you go to edit it, and you tap Magic Eraser, and it will look for suggestions of things to erase from the photo. people in the background, distracting like wires and lines in in a landscape photo, all this sort of stuff. It automatically, you can just say, remove it all the suggested things, and it will highlight them. Or you could say, no, I really want, and you can circle with your finger, whatever it is you want removed. And it is remarkably good. I had a photo of people in a function room sitting around, tables, and like one person was partially blocking a doorway in a cart, and I erased them, and it filled in the doorway in the cart like seamlessly. It was pretty good. Like, how do it know that it looks like that? It was pretty remarkable. And yeah, I mean, it's really kind of neat.
Yeah, I've played with it a little bit again on my Pixel phone, and it is fun. It is incredible what it can do. And the simpler the background, the better. Like the commercial they show them like on the beach where there's some guy standing in the background and they erase it. Well, of course that's a simple background, sand and water. But if you've got like a complex building or something like that, then you will see it. You'll see where it tried to guess, because this is an AI thing where it's trying to guess what to fill in. But it's really cool. It is really, really cool. Where you can say, like, I was looking at one picture of my truck, and there was a telephone pole behind, and it immediately highlighted the telephone pole, and I punched it, and no more telephone pole. That was it. Gone.
Nice.
I mean, my favorite is like removing overhead wires and that sort of stuff, like from landscape shots or sunset shots, and like the wires just are distracting. And it's like, could be like, yep, we did. I mean, you could do that before in like Photoshop or whatever, but it was a painstaking process. This is point, click, simple and easy. And again, if you're Google, I'm a Google One user because I needed the more space for my email. I have Gmail email accounts, and I use Google Photos as my iPhoto backup. One of them I actually have,
because it's really good.
Yeah,
it's a good backup.
Right, but I like to have my photos in not 2 places but 3 places, because I also have Amazon backing them up too. Because one thing I don't want to lose ever is my photos. So just having that then makes it possible to do this. So it's an amazing feature. It's really phenomenal. So I was really happy to get that.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. That another reason not to get a Pixel for me. Then I have to stay with my iPhone and use this.
Hey, you're paying Google either way.
I know, they don't care. They don't care.
Depending on how much they charge you per year, you're probably paying more to Google than I am by just buying the phone every 3 years.
Oh, maybe I should buy. Maybe that's the reason I can buy another additional Google phone that could convince my wife. Thank you for that, Father Cory. So before this gets any more expensive, that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion? Anything we discussed this time? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology, the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC205, Tech205. Remember to like each episode of Secrets of Tech on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter, leave us comments wherever you find it, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to thank James for research assistance in this episode, and until next time, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thank you, Dom.
Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.